Hey guys, how's everyone doing today? This beautiful Sunday afternoon. Signing in with Dan the Man today. Just gonna get started here and do a little review on my 2024 BMW S1000R with the K63 motor. I've had it for a little over a year. Gonna talk about the things I like, things I don't like, mods I've done, and my overall thoughts and opinion on it. So without any further ado, let's get started and get going. So, I bought this bike last year in July of 2025. So I'm just coming up on a year. And, you know, it's been a really great bike. I've had some interesting experiences with it that I'd like to share. But overall, just give you some facts about the bike before we get into it. It is a 2024 BMW S1000R. The 999cc inline 4-liter bike. Makes 165 horse, and it makes around 84 foot-pounds of torque. Now this engine is a little different from the R motor. It's a non-shift cam, so it doesn't make that 200 horsepower. Just makes 165. But overall, it's a really fun bike. It has a lot of nice features like cruise control, heated grips, and it has a lot of information here I can show you on the dash. So we have different modes. We have Dynamic Pro. You can see we're in Dynamic Pro now. There's rain. Rain really dampens the throttle and makes the bike less aggressive. There's road, which is a little more sporty, and then there's dynamic, and then there's Dynamic Pro, which is the most sporty. So this is when you'll get backfires and things of that nature. But overall, the bike's pretty fun. I've put a total of 7,343 miles on it. So just want to share you my thoughts. Now, one thing I will say, which is, I want to mention it first because you will read about this problem on the forums, and I think it's critical that we discuss it. When just for background information, I'm about 6'2", 210 pounds. And when I first got this bike, I took it up on the highway and I did 90 miles an hour, and I had very, very hard steering head shake and wobble that would go like this at higher speeds. And one thing I realized through talking with people on the forums, a lot of people on the forums just live with that problem, and they don't know how to fix it, and they say it's a flaw of the bike just because it's a naked bike. You're not meant to do higher speeds on it. And I wasn't buying that because, you know, this bike's about $18,000. This needs to be able to do higher speeds. Whether it's a naked or not, I feel is irrelevant to the conversation. So I ended up taking this bike to a trackside suspension performance out in Darien, Wisconsin. And I had the sag set up for me completed. So they adjusted the preload on the front and the rear, and it has made a world of difference. And now the bike is completely stable at highway speeds, and I have zero head shake. Additionally, I have also fitted an adjustable Olin steering dampener. Now, from the factory, these do come with a steering dampener, but they're non-adjustable. So I threw on an Olin's one, which was really nice, so it's adjustable. So I can increase the resistance as I adjust the steering dampener. But that is the first major thing that I had to do to the bike that I wanted to talk about. If you get one of these, you have to make sure that the bike is set up for the weight of the rider, because if you don't, at highway speeds, this bike will handle terribly and you'll have head shake and you won't be able to ride it, and you will be turned off from the bike and extremely disgusted, as I was. Once you figure that out, the difference is night and day on the vehicle. Also, what I want to talk about is the range on this bike. This bike's a 4.5 gallon tank. I recently completed an iron butt. I drove this from Chicago to New York, Connecticut area, East Coast. And I had to stop about every 100 miles for gas, because that's when the reserve light would come on. So you get about 100 miles to the tank on the highway if you're traveling on this thing before you got to start looking for gas. And depending on the way you ride this bike, if you ride it aggressively, you know, doing 85, 90 on the highway, you'll get about 33 miles to the gallon, between 30 and 33, being, you know, same rider specs as me, which is if you're a 210 pound rider, right? Now, if you drive this pretty conservatively on the highway and you just do about, you know, 60, 65, you'll get about 45 to 50 miles per gallon. So this engine can really suck down the fuel if you want it to. But it's all determined by how much fuel it sucks, by how much fuel it consumes is the way you ride it, which is, you know, something worth noting. Additionally, I just wanted to share some thoughts on that ride I recently completed, the Iron Butt, which was 1,000 miles in a day. The handlebars, after a long time, you feel the vibrations, and I definitely had issues in my hands and numbness that did not go away for about 3 to 4 days. Now, partly, I am at fault because I had a death grip on the handlebars and I was grabbing the handlebars very tightly. But one thing this bike has, which is beautiful for longer rides, which I recommend everyone utilize, is the cruise control option. The cruise control is very nice, and it's definitely worth it. And so I just want to talk to, so yeah, on the ride it was long, but cruise control makes it a lot more sustainable. But also keep in mind, you are stopping every 100 miles. Now, in terms of mods on the bike, I just want to speak to everything I've done. We've talked about the Olin steering dampener at the beginning of the video. Recently, I've had an Akrapovic full exhaust put on, stainless steel headers, and you know, sport silencer on it. And additionally to that, I had a tune done by Two Wheel Dyno Works over in Washington, and that really woke up the bike. Now, these bikes don't have a huge power dip like the S1000Rs do. I'm familiar, there's a power dip on the Super Sport BMWs where basically between 8 and 10,000 RPMs, there's a huge dip in the power. But this, being a non-shift cam engine, doesn't have that major dip. However, the throttle is heavily restricted in the lower gears from first to fourth, and it's something that I noticed. And so the flash tune I got from Two Wheel Dyno Works has been really beautiful on the bike. It's really woken it up. It's gotten rid of the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde feeling. You know, this is a very interesting bike. From the factory, if you leave this bike at, like, you know, 2,000 RPMs, it'll do this all day. It doesn't have to scream, you know? It'll just hang out down here and it'll lope around 2,000 RPMs. It'll be fine. But with this tune, it really has woken up the bike and made the lower RPMs way more aggressive, which is really quite fun in itself, and I've enjoyed the tune. And you know, I'm definitely excited. It got rid of the horrible cold start noise. From the factory, when these bikes start up, they rev extremely high. I don't know why, but the RPMs will jump to like 2,000, 2,500, 3,000 RPMs. But now when you start it cold, it just starts normal and has a really low lope and a regular idle to it, which is really nice. And so that's something I am, you know, very impressed with the tune I received from Two Wheel Dyno Works, as well as the exhaust. Now, there's one thing I do want to note about the exhaust. The exhaust on this bike is very nice, meaning I have a Cardo unit and I still listen to music with the exhaust. It's not so deafening as to where you can't even listen to music, and that was my main concern with getting the exhaust. I also lost a ton of weight with the exhaust. The stock exhaust, I mean the aftermarket exhaust, you lose at least 10 to 15 pounds. And remember, from the factory, this bike's already light. From the factory, this bike weighs 430 pounds. So now with the exhaust I have on the bike, I'm down into the 410 pound, 405 pound range, fully fueled, which is really quite impressive. I mean, it's just a very light and nimble bike, and it definitely feels that. I'll give you a small example here of just how light the bike is. We're doing 36 miles an hour. I'm going to turn on the cruise control here, and I'm going to take my hands off the handlebars, and we're going to go through some turns, and just with my body weight, I'll be able to lean the bike through the turns. So you'll see we're coming to a right turn here. I'll just lean the bike over. Look at that, just leans right over. I sit back up on it. We'll come through another turn, I'll just lean it right over again. I never have to touch the steering wheel at all, or the handlebars. I mean, it's a very, very light bike. And it's just, you know, it's nice to have a very light bike, and it's very freeing in that sense. And so, you know, I've talked about the tune and, you know, the lightness of the bike, and I think I just want to maybe go over some more in-depth features with you that the bike has to offer. You have a multitude of different screens here in which you see key data points, one of which I think is the most important is tire pressure. You see I have 37 pounds in the front and 42.6 psi in the rear. I think that's key, as you know, for any motorcyclist. Having the correct tire pressure is key, and it's absolutely detrimental when riding a motorcycle. Tire pressure is key. But also, what's cool is you have different screens like sport and navigation. If you connect the BMW app, you can get turn-by-turn navigation on the screen, which is really nice. And then you also have the music, which if you connect your Cardo to it, as well as the phone, you can, you know, listen to music and use the BMW sat nav as a kind of an all-in-one system, if you will, to utilize. But what screen I really like the most is the sports screen. Sports screen's pretty cool. You have a little gyro in the center that tells you how far you lean the bike over. So watch, I'll lean it over to the right here, and you'll notice. See how it moves with the bike, which is really nice. And then you have a brake feel. So when I get on the brakes here, you'll see this slide up. I'll get a little gas and I'll put the brakes on. You see it, the brakes slide up pretty nicely. So that's pretty cool. And then you have DTC on the left-hand side of the screen, which is traction control. So anytime the back wheel slips, it has traction control, and it will adjust that, and you can view the slippage, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, overall, I just wanted to share my thoughts and my review of the bike. I've had it now for about a year. Like I said, bought it last June. Really pleased with the bike. As you say, I haven't mentioned the Poog windscreen yet, but I find that really does help with the wind. I didn't really want a tall windscreen, because I wanted to kind of keep the sleek look of the motorcycle. So I got a shorter windscreen, and it definitely does help, especially when you go into a tuck. It really helps get the wind right over, which is quite nice. And I am a fan of the mirrors on this motorcycle. The mirrors are very nice. They're not like the bar ends on the M1000R where they rattle. These, I really am a fan of these mirrors. They don't, when you look at them, it's not like your elbows in the way of the mirror. You can definitely see what's behind you. And that goes, you know, that's the whole point of a mirror, is the functionality behind the unit. But yeah, I just wanted to share my thoughts, and you know, just wanted to share my thoughts and opinions on the bike. Definitely has a lot of power. I mean, you can definitely get it up there and give it some beans. I'll give it a little throttle here for you in a second. Just gonna clear this intersection here, but yeah, it's a really nice bike. It has a lot of get up and go. I'm very pleased with it so far, and I just wanted to give you my thoughts and opinions on it. So if I think of anything else, oh, one last thing I did want to note is the maintenance on this bike. So I've done, BMW calls for 6,000 mile oil changes, or once a year, whichever comes first. I like to get on my bikes, and you know, I like to thrash them if the opportunity presents itself. So I do oil changes every 3,000 miles. So one key thing to note with the BMWs, and it's something that I recommend everyone do, is your own maintenance, because especially a German bike, you will save a fortune. This bike takes about 4 quarts of oil. And BMW, you go to the dealer and have them do it, they'll charge you about $25 a quart and about $30 for the oil filter. So you're looking at $130 in parts alone. And then they'll charge you an hour of labor, which will be about $200. So if you get the oil change done on this bike, you're looking at $330 plus tax. So, you know, around $340. And that is a chunk of change to be spending on an oil change. And I can post a video on how to do an oil change for this bike in the future. But one thing I will say is it behooves you from a financial perspective and just to get to know your own vehicle better. I run Mobil 1 in this, and I do a BMW oil filter. I get a 5-quart jug of 540, which is the oil weight for this bike. Oil weight's 540. I get a 5-quart jug from Walmart, Mobil 1, for about $27, and I get a BMW oil filter off Amazon for about 20 bucks. So all in, my oil change is $45. If there is ever a reason to do maintenance on your own vehicle, the reason would have to be to save money on the labor front. I mean, really, it's just, labor has gotten so incredibly expensive, and so have parts. So it's something I recommend, and I will post a YouTube video later of how to do an oil change on this bike. But yeah, overall, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for signing in with Dan the Man. I'm just pulling up now to get myself a coffee and a bagel on this Sunday afternoon. But overall, just wanted to thank you for signing in. I hope everyone has a safe Sunday. Take care, and keep 2 wheels down.